Getting his chance through the good studio to go full-time as a commentator, he worked hard, and years later has now positioned himself as a community favorite and much celebrated CSGO caster. With the game growing exponentially, we are going to see a lot more of Semmler. Hey Semmler, how's it going, man?
Chilling, man, chilling. It's a nice, beautiful day here in Stockholm, so it's actually pretty nice.
How about the games on Fragbite last night, though? Those are pretty tasty.
Dude, the games last night were sick. I mean, it's like last night was Sunday night, and last night we had Hellraiser's Nip, and that was like the closing game. You know, no way to call it, no way to know where the hell that was gonna go. And then it's like going into that series, you know, it's like your heart says Nip, but your head says Hellraisers. Because Nip are looking a little shaky lately, and you can't really be confident in their play, and I don't think they can either. And then Hellraisers have just been playing better and better. So when you go into just a best of one on Inferno, you're like, you have no way of calling it. And then it was such a close game, and Hellraisers win in the end. So it was like cool for Anders and I, because we actually got to talk with Markov a little bit. And I got to ask him why he isn't offing as much. But, you know, in the end, Nip were out of the tournament. So it was a pretty brutal night last night.
Yeah, I saw that interview. That was really cool. And actually, speaking about NIP, because I don't know if you've been looking at any of the content I was making recently, but I've been looking at a lot of their demos, and I've got a theory. It's not an interview about me, but I've got a theory that this is going to keep happening to them I think they're going to have a huge down period for the next few months. If stuff goes how I think it will, what is your opinion on NIP and, like, you know, what's happening with them, do you think?
I think it's a combination of things, really. It's it's a lot of the top tier teams basically really closing the gap as far as skill is concerned. So you really do have like a solid top 6 to 8 teams that could take a tournament on any given day. And then you have NIP, who for the longest time were dominating. So they never really had to go through that phase of, well, we're losing a lot, what do we need to do to fix that? So now it's like, now we're seeing that where they're starting to shuffle things around. They've got Fiflaren who's calling now. They've changed up positions, the way they hold on maps. They've changed how the team actually works. You know, Fiflaren putting a little bit more structure into the team. So not so much roaming, more like trying to set up structured play. So it's this whole combination of things where NIP are now having to basically do what like every other team out there has had to do for the past year, dealing with them.
Right. Now
it's NIP's turn. So I don't know if it's going to take like several months for them to bounce back. The thing is, what's really scary is that despite all these changes, despite like them shuffling things around, trying to figure out what's going to work to get them back on top again, they've still managed to make the finals for both majors, which is insane when you think about it, because it's like that's how good they are. Even if we think maybe they're a little off right now, these guys are still getting into the finals of the majors consistently. So it's like they're still the most consistent team out there. It's just going to take a little bit of time maybe for them to get dominant again. But I think it's going to be so much harder this time because just the pack has closed. There's just so many good teams now that are up at their level that now you make one mistake and, well, you know, we see them out of a tournament.
Yeah, I guess it's almost too easy to have almost ridiculous expectations for them. So it's hard to be fair sometimes.
We're so used to it now, you know, or I mean, now it's just like we've watched them dominate for a year and a half, and now it's just like, what, NIP aren't winning? That's just a testament to the other teams that are coming up. I mean, Hellraisers is a team of all-stars that originally was created to take out NIP. So it's not that big of a surprise that they actually managed to do it. Titan are getting up there, Virtus Pro as well. It's, you know, Fnatic is always going to be a contender. Like, you have teams now that are rivaling for that, or fighting for that top spot. Whereas it used to be, you know, it was just like NIP and Varigames, and then, you know, hopefully somebody comes close in third.
Definitely, but I just want to segue back to a bit more, you know, Semmler-ish questions before we go back to CSGO. And this is a question I find myself opening up the profiles with often, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's interesting. Where did your nickname come from? Where did Semmler come from?
Semmler was the name of my rogue back in WoW. And it's actually from a book. And for some reason, I always forget the author. But let's see.
What's the book about? Is it like the hero of the book, the main character, or?
There we go. It's Forsyth. That was it. Frederick Forsyth. I always forget it, but it's basically a bunch of it's a bunch of mercenaries essentially, and one of them always had. He was like a German guy basically, because, you know, Semmler. He always had whenever they were having a meeting, he was always just sitting quietly off on the side sharpening a knife. And so when I was trying to think of a name for my rogue back in the day, I was like, well, rogues, knives, they're like shifty, snakes in the grass, that sort of thing. And then it just came to me like, wait, I'm reading this book right now, and this guy, he's like the rogue of the group. So I just felt like, okay, I'll name my rogue Semmler. And then Semmler just stuck. I mean, this was like years and years and years ago. So I mean, Semmler just stuck. And then whenever I created an account or whatever, it's just Semmler.
That's actually a cool origin story for your nickname. I mean, mine is terrible, but either way, let's move swiftly on before you ask me about that. So, how did you get picked up by the Good Studio back, way back when, and how was it working with Too Good? Is he a stricter mistress than he lets on?
No, it's like hell working with Too Good. But originally, I got picked up by the Good Studio because I was casting BLC Bloodline Champions. It was like what four something years ago, where I got access to the beta for Bloodline Champions and just started playing like a madman. Like that was it. That was like the only game I played. And eventually, because I was on the West Coast, you come up with a bunch of excuses basically, but ping was a big problem because a lot of the competition was actually happening in Europe. So whenever I played in Europe, I was playing with 180 ping. And so I was really getting frustrated and, just playing tournaments, but the US scene wasn't quite there, da 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 da. One thing leads to the next, I start just casting games for fun. Because at the time, there weren't any real casters. It was like Cast was in the mix. You had Chakova, Tazosaurus. But then, they were just doing like the major tournaments. But there was a bunch of smaller tournaments where there was nobody casting them, really. They would just pull random people in. And I was like, well, there's a bunch of things that can be said, but they're not saying it. And eventually it just got to the point where my friends were like, well, you know what? Just put up or shut up. Just try it, if you're just try it and see what happens. If you have fun, if you do a good job, cool, whatever. So it was literally by the seat of my pants. I was just like, hey, screw it, let's see what people think. So I just randomly just started casting Bloodline Champions, and people enjoyed it. And then I started casting with Cast and doing like the BL gaming tournaments and some of the bigger events that were being held for BLC at the time. And then we ended up just getting into DreamHack when DreamHack Summer rolled around. They didn't have any casters, and James got in touch with us and he was like, hey, listen, if you guys can make it over here, you're more than welcome to cast. They didn't have a budget to get us over there. They didn't have anything to get us over there. It was really just like, if you're here, you guys have an open seat and an open mic, you guys can get to work. So Cast and I, we kind of just went for it. Cast, he got sponsored by BO Gaming because he was working with them at the time, officially, and they sent him over there. But I took out my savings and basically just like took out my savings, emptied it, bought a ticket over, and just went. And I was like,
wow,
you know what? It's like, if I've been always like, I wanted to go to DreamHack for years now. I have the opportunity to cast. If if it works out, I wasn't expecting anything because I never expected to go like pro casting or anything at all. I was doing it for fun at the time. But to have the opportunity to go to Sweden and cast in one of the biggest tournaments of the year, one of the biggest events of the year, it was just like too cool to pass up. So I was like, let's do it. I just took everything, put it all into Sweden. I was like, if it works, if something comes of this, great. If nothing comes of it, I'll have still been at DreamHack. I'll have still met everybody, all the BLC guys that I've been playing with for a year. I'll have met everybody. We'll have all hung out and had a great time. It's just going to be like a vacation, basically. I'll get to meet everybody and have a blast. And that was when I met James, basically. Went to Summer, hung out with James, and we kind of just like hit it off at the time because James, he was kind of like, he was doing the esports thing for Bloodline Champions. He was there at Snowlock Studios handling their esports stuff. And at the time, we hadn't really got anywhere. It was more just like we were having fun with BLC. But when DreamHack Winter rolled around, I came back this time, and James actually managed to find the money to get me over there. That was when we came up with the concept for the Good Studio. Because James he wasn't going to be at Sunlock forever, and he was just looking for something to do. And we're like, well, why don't we just put together our own studio? And we literally managed to find the house the day I left to go back to the States. I extended my trip for a week so I could stay over. I was crashing at James's place, and we were just coming up with stuff. And his brother was there. It was a great time. It was a great week. It was my birthday as well. So it was like the whole thing. And then it was just like one day to the next because they're like, well, we're going to go up to Stockholm and look for houses. We were looking online, we found a house, and they were going to go and check it. But it was just, the day that I had to leave, I had to go back to the States. So I'm just like, okay, you guys, let me know. So I get on the plane, I fly back to the States, and when I get back, when I finally am able to check my email, when I get back in the States, it's like, okay, we've got the house. Come over whenever you can. So like 2 months later, basically, of just saving up again for a ticket and everything like that, and getting everything sorted back at home. Because I had a job at the time. I was still, I wasn't in school anymore. I was just working full time, and I was just like, okay, then 2 months, screw it. dropped everything and just moved as quickly as I could. It was about like January. Moved as quickly as I could over to the good studio and just came in to start working as Bloodline Champions commentator, which was one of the 4 games we were doing at the time: Quake, Dota 2, StarCraft 2, and Bloodline Champions. So when I showed up, it was basically Apollo, James, Trance, Apollo's girlfriend, and myself in the house. And then Will, too, ended up moving in a little bit later. Will, James's brother, who was handling the events for Twitch at the time. But like that was like the starting crew, and we kind of just hit the ground running from there. A couple months later, we got the studio up, and then we just started. The good studio came to be.
Wow, so BLC turned out to be a life-changing decision getting into that game for you. That's pretty interesting. Do you have any regrets at all? I mean, it all sounds very fantastic and everything, and it's a hell of a ride and a story. But maybe were you ever having points where really low points where you're thinking about, I should have just done education or something else like that?
If people like, yeah, no regrets for what I'm doing now. But at the time, it was like this perfect, opportunity with BLC, because BLC, there's no way you can say that you're gonna, like, oh, I'm gonna play this game and I'm gonna become a pro commentator and just, go from there and that's gonna be my career. I'm gonna do that. Like, there was no way. It all just happened. I was playing BLC because I loved the game. I mean, this was back when it was like playing only weekends. They only had the servers up for weekends. It was beta testing. And so, you were just counting down the days until Thursday night, Friday night, when the servers would go live and you can just start playing again. And it wasn't matchmaking or anything like that. It was just like straight up. I mean, it was just straight up, everybody getting in private lobbies. And if you could get into BO gaming lobby, that was the shit, because you knew the best players were going to be there. So you were going to learn a lot. You were going to get stomped, but you were going to learn a lot. And then the whole point was to stay in the game. It was like fighting games BLC back then, because you had, like, the way that we ran that lobby was, if you were the bottom on the scoreboard, you get shifted out and somebody else comes in. So the whole game basically is do your best to stay in that game. Play as good as you can, because if you drop low, if you have a shit game, you're out. That's it. And then somebody else gets rotated in, and there's another 30 people waiting for him. So you're not playing again that night. You're just gonna sit there and watch. So VLC was like, that was the heyday at that time, where it's just like you played the game because you loved it. Never saw the commentary coming from that. But when I got into the commentary, I fucking loved that too. It was like nonstop. We wanted to do everything. Cast and I, we worked so hard to just study up on like what other commentators were doing. And at the time, like the pros, like the big guys were like Nick Plott, Tasteless and Artosis. So we were watching the GSL. And I was watching the GSL, because I enjoyed StarCraft 2 at the time, but it was also just, I was listening to them to learn how to do handoffs, how to, fill out my commentary. So like there was no regrets there, but it was also at the time, like when that opportunity came up to come to Sweden, it was just like I needed to get out of the States. Like I like LA was horrible, like I was hating the city, and it was just like the golden opportunity to get the fuck out.
Right, I was going to ask you if you actually miss home, but
No.
I guess you just answered that pretty much.
Like I don't, I'm not a fan. But it's like I don't, like, it's not like patriotism much, like, no, like I don't care. Like I'll be happy wherever I am, but I just didn't want to be in the States. Like I had to get out of the States. The only thing I miss obviously is like my family and my close friends who are still in Los Angeles. And it's been a while since I've seen them, so I'm planning on heading back this year to visit. But like there was no regrets there. Getting out of the States was like the primary fucking goal. And then James gave the opportunity when we started the studio. I was like, that's it. I dropped everything and I just got out. So that was great. But then, of course, when it's like really low, because it's been a struggle, because when I came over for Bloodline Champions, it had like a few more months in it. And then right when we started the studio, the pro scene started to die. Like the studio, they were making money, but they weren't making enough money to be able to put it into a pro scene the way that they were doing before with Bloodline, with Summer and Winter at DreamHack. So it started to fade away. We were doing content at the studio, but it was like it was past that point where Bloodline Champions was gonna be able to blow up and start competing with like some of the bigger games out there to really start investing your time in it. So I was immediately like in this funk where I wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do. Like I was just playing a lot of StarCraft 2 at the time because I was enjoying the game, and I was with Apollo, and working with Apollo was great because I got to learn a lot. We both kind of just learned, because at that time we were still just listening to James. James was giving us feedback daily. Whenever we would cast, we'd just go to James afterward and be like, okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And James, being James, you'd just be like, oh, you did this right. This was all right. You have to stop doing this, And it was just like, okay, cool, So at the time, it was like Apollo and I were kind of like apprentices, just trying to learn. But it was like this really shifty place, because where I was like, I'm not quite sure what's going on? What am I going to do? I started hosting StarCraft 2 because, that was fun and it was something different and it was a way to expand like my skill base, basically get more experience doing different things. But that wasn't it. And it only feels like now I've found like my purpose or like what I really enjoy
Right,
doing again.
right.
Since Bloodline Champions, I enjoy like casting Counter Strike and playing Counter Strike as much as I enjoyed Bloodline Champions. So now it's like it's all right. Like I feel like I'm at home again with Counter Strike, where it's like okay, I really enjoy the game. I really enjoy the scene. I love the teams. Everything is all right, and now it just feels like I want to just go forward from here. But for a solid year there, I was just like it was kind of just drifting, trying to figure things out.
And speaking of Bloodline Champions being the first kind of game which really you got passionately into, and then the pro scene kind of died. We're seeing the opposite now. CS:GO, it's going from maybe you could argue even stagnation, and now we had what was it 130K for DreamHack Winter 2013, and now 200K viewers at the recent EMS1 event at
Yeah.
Katowice. So what do you think that substantial growth is due to? What is the cause?
I feel like it's a lot of things. It's basically like the developers, Valve, they've been so on point with gathering feedback and seeing what works with the community. And Valve, they've taken this experience from TF2, they've taken this experience from Dota 2, and they've been feeding it into Go. And I think the biggest thing, and like this is what the developers told me as well, is like matchmaking. And for me, matchmaking was a big thing getting into CS because I could get together with some friends and we just had to click a couple buttons and there we go, we're in a match, competitive 5v5, and it was just fucking great. Like that is awesome. The ease to get games going. Like now I'm even solo queuing. I'm just like if I have time, doesn't matter if my friends are online or not, I'll just solo queue because I'm enjoying like the matchmaking function so much. I think that plays a really big part in how big CS has gotten now, or Go at least has gotten, because it's so easy to just get in the game and play the game. And it's kind of like Dota, it's kind of like LoL, it's the same thing. Sometimes you'll have great teams and you have great games and you feel like everything works and you carry and it's awesome. And sometimes you have teams where it's like okay, there's nobody's using their mics, and people are just doing random things and you're like, well, okay, but I'm just going to try and focus on my game. And I think that appeals a lot to a lot of people. It's like very easy to get into the competitive format of Go, and once you get into the competitive format of Go, it's really hard to not enjoy it, and really hard to be like, no, this sucks and I'm not going to play it. Like Go, like CS just has this thing where it'll hook you, and then you don't want to stop. And then of course, like they've built on with supporting streams, supporting tournaments, really trying to tie in the competitive scene of Counter-Strike with everybody else that's playing the game, because you got to understand, like the vast majority of people playing Counter-Strike now may be just casual gamers who are in the game to have fun, and then now they're starting to see, wait, there's all this competition that's tied around Counter-Strike. This is cool, I want to get in on this. And then they start releasing skins for weapons, they start releasing stickers for teams and all this sorts of things, where it's just like it's starting to get to this big thing where you really do feel like a part of a community when you're playing Counter-Strike. Like you feel like you're part of something bigger. And that's very appealing to a lot of people as well, I think. It's like feeling like you belong, like you share this passion for this game with so many other people out there. I mean, 150,000 concurrent players. They just broke the record with like 160 or something like that. You have millions of unique players per month, and that community is just growing and growing and growing and putting out content. And there's more and more tournaments. The pro players are making more and more money, so they're going to be sticking around and continuing to give us big shows. Like it's just this perfect storm of an awesome community coming together around an awesome game. And I can't see that, like I can't see it faltering anytime soon. Like it seems to me like it's just like this great community that's only going to keep growing as the year progresses. And shit, for years, man, I can't see CS going anywhere. It's already like the game 1.6, is, and hell, even before that with the 1.5, 1.4, all these, it's been around for ages. It really is that kind of like just great game that seems like it can withstand time. And as far as a competitive game is concerned, that's crucial. That is absolutely crucial, because it really is, just this game that's going to stay with not a lot of changes made to the game. It's still the same game at heart with just a couple tweaks here and there. And it's just going to keep going. So people, they look back to like 10 years ago, like, oh yeah, I know this game. And it's like looking at a match of football. Like maybe you haven't watched a game of football in 10 years, but you're going to watch it and be like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. So like that CS has kind of got it all in that respect. I think it just appeals to so many people because maybe they were playing when they were like 8 years old, and now they're just playing again, and they're remembering how fun it was to play, and so they're going to get back into the game and just keep watching. Like, yeah, it's just a whole bunch of things coming together right now to make Go just awesome.
It is a perfect storm of awesomeness right now.
Damn straight, man. Awesomeness.
Speaking of EMS1 kind of Insta as well, I mean, everyone's going to say, I'd imagine, that that was a great event from more or less every standpoint. But going forward, because you're saying, of course, we have everything we need right now, but it's just the production and the show. How can we improve the production, the show, and the entertainment value going forward? What could EMS1 do better next time, do you think?
As far as EMS is concerned, I think next time CS is going to be one of their main titles. It's not going to be on a smaller stage to the side. It's going to be right there with LoL and StarCraft 2 side by side on the main stage the whole time through.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's the thing. Like, it's people like this is we're talking 6 months right now. In the space of 6 months, it's completely blown up. I mean, we like just Fragbyte Masters for online content last year, like the last season of Fragbyte Masters. This season, we've like tripled the viewership consistently, like near quadrupled the viewership consistently, and it's just like that kind of growth is going to appeal to sponsors. You can show those kinds of numbers and go to the media houses and be like, listen, this is the kind of viewership we're bringing in right now for this game, and then you have the major events where they're bringing in hundreds of thousands of viewers. You know, this kind of growth is going to appeal to sponsors. Sponsors have to be blind to turn an eye to this. They're going to say, wait, what? 200 and what? 30,000 concurrent watching the game right now? What is that about, and how can we get involved? How can we get in on this? That's what's going to happen now, because it's like proof of concept now. We've had like the first one where it's like DreamHack Winter, where we had more than 100,000 people tuning in for the grand finals, and that was amazing. But then you didn't know EMS, is it going to be the same? Or are we going to go down? Is it going to be down to just like 100,000 people? Are people going to want to tune in and watch still? Or is it going to go up? You know, we really didn't know. So now we have EMS, where the second major comes in, and we almost double the viewership from the last major. So now it's like, okay, well, shit, there is growth. There's a lot of people who want to tune in and watch this game. And so when you're a tournament organizer now, online content is growing. More and more viewers on a nightly basis are tuning in. And then when the majors roll out and the major LAN events roll out, more viewers for them too. So when you approach a sponsor, you're going to be like, hey, listen, this is what we've got right now. You need to get involved in this because it's growing. More and more people are watching. And this is the ground floor, because we're still right, you know, kind of at the start here. It's still very fresh, and it's still going you and there's still plenty of room for change. This is the place to be. So I think that it's just going to keep getting bigger, keep getting bigger. As far as you know, production, all that, that's the thing. If now tournament organizers can approach sponsors and say, listen, we're getting something that's rivaling League of Legends for numbers, or you know, perhaps not rivaling, because there's like 500,000 people tuning in on Twitch for the LoL finals, but still in that neighborhood, sponsors know LoL. If you can approach them and say, hey, CS is right there with them, sponsors are going to be like, sweet, let's get in on that too. Here's some money. And then as soon as that money comes in from the sponsors, all of a sudden the production increases, because the production value will improve, because you're going to be able to bring in more talent, more cameras, more gear, more people to work the production crew. Everything is going to go smoother. You can build bigger, better sets, and just the whole thing will keep growing and going up, just because of the community that are tuning in to play this game and watch this game. That is appealing to a lot of people who have who are looking to invest, and that's the thing. We can only it only feels like we can go up right now, you know, knock on wood, but like that's how it feels right now, that there's only going to be growth for this year, at least in CS.
And that is a really, really positive note to come close to a close in this interview. I have a couple more things I'll ask you. First, I'm sure this is going to get old really soon, but can you give me your sexy French accent whilst you say I'm poker?
Bon. Sorry, hold on. I gotta clear my throat. It's gotta be more gravelly, you know. Bon. Ladies and gentlemen, now I am poker.
Oh, wonderful. Dude, that is gonna get, like,
Seriously?
you're gonna have so many requests are gonna come in. I'm just gonna be one of the first, so I'm happy with that. All right. You're also drinking coffee like a French person out of like a...
You gotta have a bowl,
yeah,
man, because if
a bowl, yeah.
That's the thing, you know. Americans, they have it all wrong. They don't believe in, you know, that's the thing. They're like, cookies and milk, cool, but you have hot chocolate, you have coffee. You need to dip your toast in that too. So go with the bowl.
Dip your toast in coffee?
See, dude, totally. You kidding me?
What?
Toast, butter, a little bit of jam, dip that in your coffee. That's the way to start the morning right there.
I'm gonna get in on this. All right. So I learned something. Definitely. Do you have any final thoughts? Because I said I would keep you no longer than 20 minutes. It's been a bit over now. So any final thoughts to close it out on?
It's fine, man. I mean, hell, if you want to keep going, I'm free, like I said. But it's like, you know, Counter-Strike is like right now I think I pretty much summed it up when I was talking about the Counter-Strike community, but it's such a it's like a beautiful place to be right now because it's just, I mean, it really is perfect. The teams are getting better. And so the games are becoming more and more entertaining as the teams learn new tricks, learn new strats, and close the skill gap. Just when even when it comes down to aim and the ability to kill people, like the teams are getting closer and closer and closer. So every tournament now is going to get more and more fun to watch because you've got your team, you're desperately rooting for them to win, but there's like six other teams that could take them down. There's six other teams that could win this tournament. And that is just crazy as far as, tuning in for a tournament, you don't know who's going to win. You're hoping for your team, but you really don't know who's going to come out on top. Like that is so exciting now to be tuning into a tournament because you have, I mean, you think, okay, these guys are in great shape. Virtus Pro for EMS, it was kind of like fated that they would do it. It was like this perfect storm of them playing on home turf and also playing like the best they have in years. And then, Titan not quite there. Really, there's still upsets as well because even those top tier teams that you would say are favorites to get into the finals, Titan, they didn't even get out of the groups. They overthought their game. They focused too much on strategizing and forgot, that a lot of this comes down before you can get into strategy. It comes down to actually managing to secure frags. And so, that it's just seeing like how teams are going right now, and how they're just continuing to find new things, new strats that we haven't seen yet or that we haven't seen for a long time. It's like the meta just keeps turning around and we're going to have old things that come back into it, but there's still new things as well to keep things spicy. So it's really just like this perfect storm of just awesome games that are going to keep coming out in Counter-Strike. And then just, like I said, more viewers tuning in, more people playing the game. It's just going to be like a bigger and better show time and time again now. And it's really going to be interesting to watch how the tournament organizers decide to push things because now it's it's like who can put on the best show in the year, who's going to have the tournament that everybody's talking about. And right now it's EMS because they did blow people away with that. They filled a goddamn stadium in Poland and then shattered all the online viewer records and just had the home team win too. It was like this perfect storm, just fantastic tournament. But then what's next? We've got what, Copenhagen Games coming up in a month, DreamHack Summer right after that in June. And then there's potential for other tournaments that aren't even announced yet that could come into the mix now, seeing as how we have also like the GS League that's happening over in London that's coming out too, with like they've got like 30 grand in prize money. Like more and more tournaments are going to get involved, and it's just like a beautiful time to be involved in CS. It's just so cool to be playing the game and watching the game and seeing how it's going to grow throughout the next year, because sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Like it really is a thing of beauty.
So the bottom line is that you're loving life right now.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy. Like I'm working with Anders. Anders is awesome. We're pretty much like it's cool to work with someone. It's not just like work. It's like we're friends. So it's like hanging out, and then we get to talk about the game that we love. So it really does work out. Like it's like that's the thing. It's Anders and I, when we cast, is pretty much like what we talk about anyways when we're not casting. Like who's doing well on the teams, what's going on, what's this cool strat we saw. Like that, all that stuff is like just like it's like a continuation of the conversation that we have off of the stream, except that now we're able to share that excitement with everybody too on the stream. So for me, like I found like the perfect crew to work with. We're gonna, Vendetta is in the mix now as well. I want to, get him on, as part of a crew as well. I want to work more on like maybe, like seeing if it is possible to really push to have like a 3-man cast and really refine that. But I think the next step for that is we need to get like all three of us together in a studio so that we can sit side by side, because it's night and day. Casting side by side with Anders. I mean, on Skype, we do a great job as well, but like there's nothing like having the guy next to you, because you have the hand signals, you can like really go back and forth. It's all the body language, everything like that, it's all right there. It's so easy. So if we had like all three of us there, like that would be really cool as well. So I want to see if that could actually work, if we can make that work for CS, which I think would be sick. But it's just like the crews working with Fragbite, everything right now is like really working out quite nicely. So it's cool because it's been like 2 years of like struggling, basically, like really struggling. So to have things start to come together somewhat, and no idea what the future holds, but like right now things are looking really good. So I'm really happy. Like everything is kind of like come together.
Definitely. So thanks so much for the interview. We will do Semmler Part 2 in the future for sure.
Cool, man.
You're so many fans. I got to keep them happy. No problem at all. I wish you the best. Au revoir.